As we all know, everything on the internet is true. So when people say this Patriots schedule is weaker than many New England area high school schedules, it's very alarming. But I'm here to tell you this team might actually be good at football, and it might be slightly exaggerated how weak their schedule is. So thank you for sticking with me through that controversial statement. We have three quarterbacks here. They all have four letters in their name, plus or minus one, so I thought it would be very balanced. And I want you to look here at how closely knitted the strength of the opponents have been throughout the year. You can see it's pretty darn close, right? So, how is it that one, they're not far and away 32nd, and opponent, defensive expected points added played throughout the season? That's a little weird. We can go a little bit further and see that there's actually some differences with these quarterbacks as well, believe it or not, because when we look at how they performed statistically, despite having very similar schedules, the stats are quite different. We see that Drake May looks like a really good quarterback, and these other guys, Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP, he just hasn't really played to that level. And Bo Nix, he got to the AFC Championship as well. I should mention too that the win probability being between 20 and 80% is to exclude garbage time. And, that's used as an argument against May and the Patriots as well, is that, if you exclude that, the numbers look very, very different. So this is May at his worst. And when we look at the EPA per play here, May and Darnold being 13 EPA per play different. When we compare that to Darnold and Rodgers being 11, that is really scary because Rodgers is the 27th best quarterback in EPA per play in non-garbage time. So the fact that he is closer to Darnold than Darnold is to May suggests that, once again, May might actually just be good at football, believe it or not. And here I included Stafford just as a little bit of an interesting layer as well, because Stafford is nowhere near May, which is interesting given people think Stafford is the MVP. And, again, it's not to say that it's just going to be one for one, but Stafford had a ton of success versus that defense. So does that mean then that the Patriots could have success against this defense as well? I think there's surprisingly a real chance because, yes, when we look at the playoff success of the Patriots so far this year, the offense has been very meh, and people will like to say that's what really is going to be the driving force here then. The regular season doesn't really matter. The playoffs are where we see teams' true colors. I just don't think that's true. I think the sample size matters, and 3 games against great defenses back to back to back is pretty restrictive to get a real sample of what a team is. Because when we contextualize things as well, we see the Patriots 0.4 against these 3 defenses they played, the Chargers, Texans, Broncos. They've put up 1 point less per game on average than these defenses allowed, so that's not really anything. The points against versus the Chargers and Texans, were excluding the Broncos since they didn't have their quarterback, is minus 13, though. That doesn't get talked about very much in this conversation. So how is it that the Patriots offense is the talk of the town, not being good enough, which it isn't. It hasn't been good in the playoffs, but we're not saying also, though, like, oh my goodness, their defense is just an absolute unit. Them being healthy and having so much talent and good coaching is really dominating teams at this point. 13 points allowed less than average in those 2 games. I don't think the difference between 2 and 3 is too big, and it would be bigger if we included the Broncos game. So this is favoring the naysayers of the Patriots offense, because we don't include the defensive performance against the Broncos as well, because yes, Nix to Stidham is a big difference, but the weather also for like half of the game was basically unusable. So that is going to throw a damper on the Patriots offense, and we're not including that to help their defense. So allowing 10 points against the Chargers and Texans on average versus their 23 average, that's huge. We also see though that like in advanced numbers, again, expected points added, my first and true love, the Patriots expected points added versus the three teams they played in the playoffs, it's -9, okay? Compared to what it was in those defenses in general, that's really bad. Really, really bad. But again, it's really a lot worse when we look at what the Chargers and Texans did against the Patriots because it's -29. So 20 worse, and yet, again, people are panicking about the Patriots offense and they're not just saying, oh my gosh, this defense is just wrecking people. Herbert, yeah, you can say that he hasn't had playoff success. That's a great quarterback still. CJ Stroud, I don't think very highly of him, and he played terribly, but maybe part of it is because the Patriots are good. So when we look at things then through the lens of strictly this game, what do we like for the Patriots here? What can we hold our head high about and say this is actually an edge for the Patriots? And first and foremost, we again go back to the quarterback well, which is a pretty good well to have in your favor. It is the most important position after all. And when we look at blitzing performance here, May is fourth best in PFF grade when he isn't blitzed, and the Seahawks blitz at the 26th most percentage. They are very clutch when they do it. They tend to be they're the best blitzing team when they do blitz, but they tend to leave somebody open, and it tends to be a little bit of a trap situation where it just is their hot read that's open, and then they rally to the tackle. So there is something to be said that they are the most consistently left open blitzing defense in the league as well, though. So May could have success there when they do blitz, which is not often, but he's also going to likely have success when they don't blitz because he's just really good against non-blitzes. Darnold versus the blitz is 15th best in PFF grade. The Patriots blitz the 10th most. That could be problematic. Beyond it, too, like I said, just with the numbers before when we were contextualizing the Patriots, May clears Darnold in just a general sense. That's not to say Darnold's bad. He's not. I love me some Sam Darnold in the modern era, but May is just playing at a super, super high level. So the elephant in the room then, though, is can the Patriots slow down JSN? Can anybody slow down Jackson Smith-Njigba? I say no, but I think that's just, the cost of doing business. We are talking about the number one yards per route run receiver in the league. Holds up there with basically any season in the PFF era from 2006 onward. So it's not going to be favorable for the Patriots, but I think it could be mitigated quite a bit because Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis is about as good of an outside duo as you'll see in this league. They're number 9 and number 22 in average PFF coverage grade. When we look at their average for the past 2 years, what that would rank today. So that's really, really good. When your lesser guy is the 22nd best corner outside or slot, that's a tough matchup for sure. And Davis, he struggles more with the speedy guys, which JSN, he can get deep with the best of them, but he's not particularly fast. So Davis is not really at a unique disadvantage there. If anything, Gonzalez is faster than JSN is to Davis. So that could be a little bit restrictive. In the one-on-one matchups, you don't want to have those much, but Gonzalez could pose a threat, and, just in zone assignments, Davis is going to do about as good a job as any corner 2 will in the league. So from there, you're left with Cooper Kupp. That's a fine receiver. Rashid Shaheed, he has his moments for sure, but it's usually just a splash play that really gets him on the stat sheet. So at that point, the Patriots having great coverage all around and being disciplined, that makes things pretty difficult. That's going to be Darnold needing to be very precise in all of his open opportunities because there's not going to be a whole lot of them to begin with. And what's interesting too is the Seahawks having their great defense. They don't allow deep plays basically ever. McDonald is just such a great guy for allowing seemingly nothing in coverage, but particularly with having good coverage shells deep. They're fourth in defensive depth of target allowed, and they're 19th in tackling, though. So they do sometimes have a little bit of an issue with rallying to the ball. That's according to PFF, the tackling. The interesting thing here is that Stephon Diggs, when we look at receivers with 50% or more of targets compared to the lead receiver in the league, Diggs is number 2 in least depth of target. So that is to say that he's going to do a lot of his work shallow, and the Seahawks do allow the shallow stuff. So that could be a bit problematic. That could be some routine, 6-yard gain, 7-yard gain, 13 from a broken tackle or what have you. Number 7, run after catch per reception, Ramondre Stevenson. Number 33 for Travion Henderson. That's a little bit problematic as well when the tackling is not just absolutely A1. And again, it's not really a weakness, it's right about average for the Seahawks, but when we're talking about a great defense, you got to pick and choose what you can here. So getting some run after the catch, that is going to be paramount for the Patriots. And, Douglas is great at that as well. He's in the top 10 for receivers. He hasn't been involved, though, so I'm not really factoring in him too much, but he might be in this game where they're probably going to do a lot of shallow stuff. So his run after the catch could be valuable there. For perspective, the Patriots are third in tackling per PFF as a team. So that is really a big discrepancy there in favor of the Patriots. As well, for the weaknesses that the Patriots have on defense, they don't have a great pass rush. The Seahawks don't have a great offensive line. It's been better recently, but it's not a strength, I wouldn't say. And the Patriots, when Spillane is on the field particularly, they don't have great coverage for tight ends. But Barner is not going to really damage you. He's 30th in yards per out run for tight ends. That's really poor. So, Cooper Kupp, the meme there is that he's a tight end. He's not really. He's still a slot receiver like he's always been. But, maybe he can get in those crevices and make things difficult for a pretty meh coverage unit in the linebacker core. But, a lot of the time the Patriots are going to be in their heavy defenses with Spillane out there, and the Seahawks are going to, require that with having heavy packages as well. So the interesting thing here will weirdly enough be the run blocking of the receivers, I find. Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez, number 6 and number 32 in cornerback run defense for 50% of snaps played or more. That's really going to mitigate the Seahawks running advantage as well, believe it or not, because JSN and Kupp being great run blockers, they usually dominate their corner matchups. In this case, it's good on good, so that will make it more of a line comparison, and in which case the Patriots line is a lot more stout defensively stopping the run than the Seahawks is at establishing the run. So that can mitigate their ground attack, and Kubiak can love to run the ball a whole bunch, even if he shouldn't. He's at minus 6% pass rate over expected this year. He's always below it in below average, I should say, in pass rate over expected as a play caller. So that's just a thing with him. Pass rushing wise, the Seahawks do have a disgusting pass rush. They come at you in waves. They have the superstars. But Abe Lucas, 34th in pass blocking for tackles. Kayvon Chason, 14th in pass rush productivity. That's a big advantage. Will Campbell, believe it or not, is potentially better in line to stop DeMarcus Lawrence than is the case for Lucas on Chason, because Campbell's 42nd and DeMarcus Lawrence is 21st in pass rush productivity. I'm not saying that's an advantage for Campbell by any means. I take Lawrence in that every day, especially with Campbell just getting eaten up recently. But, Chason has been statistically better at pass rushing than Lawrence has, and Lucas is right there with Campbell in pass protection. What really moves me, though, here in favor of the Patriots is that the interior for the Seahawks line is just really bad at pass protecting. Bradford, he's 74th for guards. Zabel's 49th. Sundell at center is 19th for center, so that's pretty bad. That is really worrying when we're talking about Milton Williams being third in pass rush productivity for interior players and Christian Barmore being 15th. That is a really dominant interior, and this is a particularly weak interior for pass protection from the Seahawks. So Darnold could be having a lot of pressure in his lap here. And again, that's even going to be magnified again because the run game really shouldn't be there, you figure, especially with Walker being pretty much the only running back you feel anyway about here for the Seahawks, with Charbonnet unfortunately being out. So the comparison here is the weakest interior pass protector for the Patriots is Wilson, who's 44th as a guard. That's better than Zabel at 49, who is the better interior option for the Seahawks. So then you also add in that, Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy is a great interior duo for the Seahawks, obviously, but they're 11th and 13th in pass rush productivity versus Barmore being 15th. They're closer to him than they are to Williams at 3. So there are some really concerning things here, especially in the interior for the Seahawks compared to the Patriots. And what is going to really make things change the balance a whole lot here is, can the Seahawks get enough success on the ground to mitigate that interior pressure? Because interior pressure is just the bane of any quarterback's existence. Ask, Tom Brady even. It'll stop the best of quarterbacks. But Seattle, they're not going to have a very likely opportunity to mitigate it from the run because 18th in rushing success rate when we exclude garbage time, against 10th in run defense success rate for the Patriots. So the Patriots here really can control the line of scrimmage, I think. And at that point, that becomes a very dicey proposition when we're talking about a one-game, championship here, where can May get you enough plays to maybe get you some undeserved yards where the play's not really there, and can Darnold struggle with getting the interior pressure? These are very real things, and I will be exploring better what the verdict is on who's going to win the Super Bowl for me, but I'm saying for sure the Patriots are alive here, and that's pretty contrary to what most people would say. So I think this is pretty interesting, and, this is all coming together to mean that, the Patriots aren't here by chance. They're actually a really good team. Those are my thoughts. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comments section. Be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to treat yourself like a friend as well.